Hi, everybody, and welcome to another The Culture Hour little taping that myself, owner of Premier Rapport, does, and Elizabeth, and that's not Elizabeth this week. So Elizabeth is out gallivanting around having fun in life, and we will catch her again next week. But we have a guest today, and his name is Corey Shelton, and Corey is the founder and owner of Lime Life Media. And I was recently introduced to him, and it's one of those things when you meet people and you gravitate and the conversations keep going. Corey happens to be one of those individuals, and we're really excited to have him as one of our first guests on the Culture Hour. So Corey, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what your jam is and how you help businesses transform who they are?
Absolutely. Well, first I have to say thank you for having me on here, Shelley. It's been a pleasure getting to know you more and just really being able to develop and grow our relationship. You are definitely one of those people that all of your listeners need to have in their life for sure. So from my standpoint, at Lime Life Media, we specialize in transforming organizations and businesses into market-leading, purpose-driven brands through brand strategy and digital marketing. So that's really what our jam, as you put it, is doing that. So
Awesome. Well, what's so interesting about you is you go about it in a really different way. I don't want to spoil because Corey's actually doing a couple of talks this year, one at Disrupt HR on June 7th, and then another one at CNU for the annual Peninsula SHRM chapter conference as well. And he's going to put a little twist on that branding and the relationship and hopefully still some music in there. So he does things really differently that really helps companies and individuals, as he said, transform their messaging. So here's what happened. Last week, if you guys recall, we talked about HR being friend or foe, and then we also talked a little bit about human capital, and I loathe that word, human capital, and we're going to rewrite that. We talked about the turnover and sort of marry those conversations together. And then lo and behold, a few days later, I'm piping into LinkedIn and I see that Corey has done a taping and sort of reached out to myself and a few other folks saying, hey, you guys, you know, I've been thinking about this human capital thing, and I've been thinking about a different way of talking about that. It's not really this, it's really that, and I want to spoil it. And then I found this article on LinkedIn, as you can tell, loved LinkedIn, and it was about Airbnb, and LinkedIn does its own top companies and places to work as well every year, and they're consistently on it. So let me just read a little bit about this article. It says, what happened when Airbnb blew up its HR department to focus on employee experience? So, of course, got to have a catchy title to draw people in. It definitely drew me in. And so I started reading this, and it talks about the employee experience, and that's another hot buzzword combination that's kind of come to the forefront. But a few things that it talks about here, it's called an EX team, the experience team, that is throughout their entire organization, and they do it from the get-go. You know, they've got in here, and I'm just reading from the article, they've got in here that the reason why they've tried to create this seamless experience of service delivery, not just to the clients that come to them for their getaways, but more so the model that supports the employees too, hence what Corey's going to get at here in a second. So just a couple of things. First of all, in 2016, for 900 positions, they received an astounding 180,000 resumes. That's just crazy. Yeah. And when they go through the process of interviewing, they kind of stage it out. They're slow to hire, which I always love the term slow to hire, quick to fire. And if you do it slowly, then you don't have to do that firing thing on the back much, right? But their interview process has the normal interview process, but then they have two separate pieces that their experience team becomes a part of, and the interviews are completely predicated on getting at the alignment of the core values of the individual as well as Airbnb, which I talk about that all the time. So of course, when I read it, I was like, again, they stole that from me, but no, they didn't. So they talk about the core values, the business strategies. They also go on to talk about the onboarding piece with shadowing. They talk about challenging guests and how those are talked about in the interview as well as the onboarding process. The onboarding continues with the belonging and the cohorts. They talk about the brand identity, right at you, Corey.
Yeah, that's my
And they
jam.
give all examples of even their space in the home field. So again, it was all about the experience. So with that said, Corey, tell everybody what was in that article that you, not article, but the video. What was your thought?
So the premise of the article was that how we as organizations need to stop looking at our people as human resources to manage, and instead start looking at our people as human relationships to lead. Um,
Yes.
so that was really the premise of it. And I think that also taps into some of the things you're talking about just a second ago, where even from the standpoint of company culture, I think that we need to start shifting the way that we say that to, we don't want to create a company culture. We want to create a brand culture, because the company focuses in on what it is that we do, you know, our products and our services, our profits, our P&L statements, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But your brand, like you were talking about a second ago, and like Airbnb has tapped into the experience aspect of it, is when you focus in on your brand, you start to go below what it is you do down into why it is you even exist. So, you know, you're talking about your core values, your unwavering beliefs, your purpose for why you're even doing what it is that you're doing. Because at the end of the day, all of our products and services are meant to serve somebody, which means that in order for us, for our companies to serve somebody, our people need to serve them, which means we need to serve our people. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, I completely agree. You know, my jam is all about the company culture, and I
Yep.
definitely believe that all of it is predicated on the employees. And when I first started my business almost a decade ago, the whole thing was about the connection. You know, it was obviously the connection of the people, but it
Yeah.
was far more than just the networking. It was the relationships and the ability that we have to connect the people, places, and things literally all day long.
Yeah.
So when I heard you on that day on the video, that whole thing came full circle to me, and I was like, this guy gets it. He totally gets it. We have to have all of those fundamental, I call it real stuff,
Yeah,
really human
exactly.
stuff, right? And
Exactly.
and that's what makes it, you know, come together. So how do you see this playing out, or what are your thoughts to sort of make this happen, or what are things that you do now to make this happen for your clients?
Well, I think in terms of from an organizational standpoint, I think that there's some fundamental things that people need to start doing, which is one of the first ones I would say is getting rid of the word manager or the concept of managing people, and instead institute this idea of creating and developing leaders. You know, one of my favorite people, Simon Sinek, I love something that he says, you know, rather than us being in charge of people, we need to take care of the people who have been placed in our charges as leaders, right? So it's not our job to micromanage the people or to micromanage the work that's being done. It's our job to lead the people who are actually accomplishing the work. And I think that when we take that leadership mindset, when we start diving down into the brand level of the psychology behind why it is that we created our business, you know, and again, this starts at the top, which I think is one of the reasons why it's so difficult to get right, is because a lot of times in organizations, you know, we have our vision statement, our mission statement, all these fancy things that when you come in as an employee or an executive or whatever, you say these things one time, you forget about them. That's not a core belief or a value. Your core belief and your values are the things that you say every day. And that's the same thing with brand. Your brand is everything you do, everything you say. It's the way you make other people feel. And your brand is defined not by you, but by other people. And I think it's the same thing with a company culture. And more importantly, if you want to go deeper than that into a brand culture, you have to start tapping into those aspects.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. And you said a couple of things. This, I was flipping back again, I was trying to find it, but Airbnb talks about their space that all their employees work in, again, being congruent with you're saying the brand. So it's not, you know, that they have to say it every day, but they literally, it's like empathy mapping coming to life. They
Yeah.
literally see it, feel it, touch it, smell it. They have landings that are dedicated to the different resorts that they are, you know, obviously selling on Airbnb to their clients. That they have menus that are specialties that reference it, and it's crazy how they talk about it. You know, I thought Google had it going on. It looks like they're called landing stations, different stores and different stuffs that help align what it is that the employees see. So it helps them grow their knowledge of the different destinations, and they feel like they're, completely a part of it through the entire process, which again, it's so simple and we think it's so hard, and I think we make it so hard and difficult. And I think you hear people talk about management versus leadership, what's the difference? And it is always referencing the executives, right? Really people who are truly managing at the top. And I think when you're talking about it, you're saying, and I heard this on a Netflix book I'm reading too online, and I'll pull it up in a second so everybody knows what it is, but the creators of Netflix that have their incredible environment is exactly what you said, Corey, about that. It's leadership. Everybody, I mean, literally everybody is a leader, and everybody is innovating, and everybody is engaging. And if Elizabeth were on here, she would be saying, because her favorite thing is employee involvement. She's like, the engagement piece comes from the involvement piece. And one of her things that I quoted her in my last book when she says EI isn't, came way before the emotional intelligence piece. It's employee involvement. And I love that. And that's everything that you're saying. I just don't know why it's so difficult, because everybody is saying it and everybody says it's a great idea.
Right.
Very, very few are doing it. And I want to, on this last page of this article, it says that there's many ways that Airbnb infuses the EX. I love, the experience. And it says that with profits projected that they increased when they started doing these things consistently, 3,400% in 4 years.
Not surprised at all. Yeah.
That's crazy. Now, you and I both know that wasn't just everything that they did, but what they did was they found the fairy dust, the magic wand, and they really pulled it all together at once. And of course, their timing was right. But many of the things that they did, putting, gosh, I dare say it, Blockbuster out of business, in the Netflix side of it. And in the book, the Netflix person is talking about one time during just a car drive between a couple of employees, somebody said, I really want to do this radical thing today. I want to talk about having membership and not charging late fees. And everybody in the car was like, ooh, that's voodoo, because Blockbuster made their revenue on late fees. Well, obviously, we know the end of the story. Blockbuster's gone. Netflix is alive and thriving and still innovating. So they must have something right in this, bringing everybody, to the table. So together, we're going to get rid of human capital. We don't want to hear it anymore.
Exactly. Right? Yep.
Human relationships.
Yes.
And it's rewritten. Let it be said. Let it be done. Whatever it is.
Boom. We did it here.
Especially during this time of the year. Hey, if anybody's going back and watching this later, this happens to be Easter weekend. So it's appropriate to say, let it be. Anyways, Corey, any final thoughts? Our tapings are generally, we throw out a thought, we ramble on about it, we get everybody hopefully excited, and then we shut it down. So any final thoughts or anything you want to reveal about your thoughts around the music side of it, or you want to keep that for Disrupt and Penn Sherm?
I'll keep that under wraps. But what I would say is there's a quote that I love by Nelson Mandela where he says, make your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. And I would encourage your listeners, whether they are the CEO, the head of human resources, until it's going to be changed to human relationships, we're doing it. I would say that if you truly want to transform your organization from a company to a brand and transform your company culture to a brand culture, I think that all of these things are predicated upon trusting your people and giving them room to breathe and allowing them to find meaning and purpose in what it is that they're doing. Don't just treat them as functions that are carrying out something that needs to be done. Understand that your people are people and treat them as such. And when you do that, people will find purpose and meaning in the work that you're doing. Their vision, their goals will align with the company's vision and goals, and great things like Airbnb will begin to happen. So that's what I would leave everybody with.
Uh, Boom, if I had a mic. Boom.
Drop it.
Right, drop it. But I do have one question.
Yeah.
You give one or two really short, specific tips that people could do that are watching this. They literally could go back and start doing it. I mean, does anything immediately pop to mind?
I think it depends on where you're at in the organization. If you're at the top, your ability to make changes is completely different than somebody at the bottom. But what I will say is, and this is, I would encourage people to go check out, there's a guy named Jocko Willink, and he is a ex, or a former, not an ex, but a former Navy SEAL. And he wrote a book called Extreme Leadership. And it's something you touched on earlier, which is, if everybody in the organization began to just take ownership, even if you're at the bottom level and you just begin to take ownership of your own life and your own actions and what you're doing, you stop pointing the finger and blame shifting, and you actually begin to become an agent of change, whether it's in your team or at, all the way up to the C level. I think that when you begin to take ownership, that amazing things will begin to happen both in your own life and in the organization you're working with.
Love it. Love everything you said. Agree with everything you said. Spot on. I hope you guys got some inspiration on this video and some courage to bust through the fears and to take some action. I love that. And, change does start with one person at a time. We have a history of names that talk about one person standing up and being passionate and being purposeful. So we leave you. My name is Shelley Smith. Again, I'm one half of the Culture Hour. We missed you, Elizabeth.
Yeah, we missed you.
See you again next week. And Corey, thank you so much for joining us. And Corey, if people want to find you, why don't you give a quick shout out to how they can easy find you on the website or LinkedIn or your podcast or whatever you want?
Yeah, so there are a few different ways. You can go to limelifemedia.co. Make sure you do .co, not .com. That's our agency website, and you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook by typing in the Corey Shelton. So I'm not just a Corey Shelton, I am the Corey Shelton. So yeah, so they can find me there. I'd love to connect with your audience, and they can also check out the Lime Life Show, which is a podcast that I have, and you are an incredible guest on, so they should listen to that as well. So that's where they can find me. Shelley, thanks so much for having me on today.
All right, very good. Again, until next time, folks, remember, culture matters. Have a super fantastic afternoon. Peace out.